Monday, everyone. I hope that you are having a phenomenal day, that you have started off the week with an incredible bang, that it just couldn't get any better until this very minute when you decided to allow Dr. Brian and I to come into your life. So lucky you. Actually, lucky us. We're excited to spend Monday evening with all of you. It was funny, Brian and I were Facebook messaging each other because Brian is going to teach philosophy in the boot camp. And I don't know, something he said, like, you seem to have the same affliction that I do. Like being pretty doggone proud of ourselves. I don't know if that's what you call it, or I just always decide you might as well sign up to be your biggest fan because there are plenty of people who want to be your enemies. So.
Well, that's true. I had a patient once tell me it's not much of a frog that won't tout his own lily pad.
That's awesome. Hey, look at who's there. El Presidente.
Hey, a very handsome man.
And then Tabor Smith joined us as well. Welcome, welcome, Tabor. And Dr. Neufeld, welcome. We're so glad to have you. Dr. Cordero and I will be coming to you hopefully live this week on gratitude, so that all of you know July the 13th is our time to give back. July 13th, it's called the Divas and Goddesses of Chiropractic Give Back. So I am going to be joined with the First Lady, Debbie Cordero, and Randy Cohen, Dr. Amanda Affleblatt, Dr. Jillian Kirsch, Dr. Chelsea Rainey, and Dr. Rochelle Knowles. And we are all teaching on gratitude and what does that mean? How do we put ourselves in a position on a daily basis, regardless of our circumstances, to be grateful, as well, living in abundance so that we can give back financially and time-wise to the things that mean a lot to us. And I assume for most people watching, one of those is going to be Sherman College. So all profits from that will be donated back to Sherman College. So I'm really excited. Mark your calendar for July the 13th.
I'm in. I'll be watching.
Yay. All right, so let's jump in. So today's is Principle 20. For those of you who aren't sure what we're doing, we're grateful to you as well, Dr. Cordero. We are, if you've never really studied Stevenson's 33 principles, you can Google it and have the 33 principles. You can look at them. Dr. Brian and I have slowly gone through the first 19 and kind of some of the others, and we're going back around. And today we're hitting principle. Hey, Johnny Reuter. Good to see you, my friend. We're hitting Principle 20, which is innate intelligence. And it says this: a living thing has an inborn intelligence within its body called innate intelligence. Just to give a basis too, I know that I've had lots of new Facebook friends lately. So Dr. Brian is one of the professors at Sherman College of Chiropractic, and he teaches students about philosophy and how to really apply these so they come to life. And so that's something that we've been trying to do for students and those in practice, how our chiropractic philosophy isn't just something that we sit around and do kumbaya with our chiropractic colleagues, but how we make them living and breathing in our practice, because it becomes a point at which we use our philosophy to make our decisions. So Brian.
Yes.
Innate intelligence, what you got?
Well, and I like this one particularly because when we're at school and we're up until now, we've really done what was maybe, the universal principles. So the intelligence we were talking about really up until now has been universal intelligence. And it's always interesting how the students want to jump right into using innate as examples for the first few principles versus universal. And that's why I love that we're doing this, because we have to go back and see philosophy-wise, we start with there's material and it's organized, which means there has to be an intelligence behind it. We don't say where the material came from. We say that it's already here. And now we've extrapolated that all the way down. Now that we're dealing with a living thing, and in this case, it's biologically living. So it's going to exhibit the 5 signs of life, which is principle 18, which is going to be growth, assimilation, reproduction, growth, and adaptation. And that adaptation is hugely important because in ourselves and in our patients, in our colleagues, we do have this thing called innate. And because of innate, you and I have jobs, because it is being in, innate knows what it needs to do to run your body. It knows if your heart rate needs to go up or if it has to go down. Does it need to digest this, or does it need to get rid of this molecule that it doesn't need? Does it need to breathe quicker or breathe slower? When we go outside, does it need to constrict our pupils, or we come in, does it need to open them up? And name it. And so there are some, I don't know, depending on the research or the resource you get, 37 to 70 trillion cells in the body. And in order for you and I to be as healthy as possible, all of those cells have to be doing exactly what they're designed to do at any given moment. And of course, every given moment changes by the nanosecond. So I don't know. I would not want to leave that up to my conscious mind, because I don't know where my keys are right now. And so, I don't know what day it is half the time. I even have to take a picture of my schedule so I know what room I'm supposed to be in at school, and that's my wallpaper on my iPad at school. So that's me being just a busy human. I've got all these things going on. Isn't it great that I don't have to worry about all the survival things? I don't have to worry about my heart rate, because it's going to go up or go down depending on what innate wants it to do. I don't have to worry about my respiratory rate. I don't have to worry about my kidneys or my liver doing their things, because I know that there's this thing called innate intelligence that's taking care of me. And because it takes really, really good care of me, I want to make sure that it can be expressed at the highest level possible. And that's why I get my spine checked regularly. And that's simple enough to just talk to a patient about. Patient, practice member, client, whatever you want to call them, doesn't make sense that you do have this life force inside you. What's the difference between you and myself and a cadaver? Some of my students might say not much, but there's a little bit of difference. There's a little bit of difference. Yeah, there's a little bit. But it is this thing. It's the fact that my innate is still flowing within me. What happens to innate when we die? I don't know. I'll ask God when I get there. But that being said, that's the difference between us and the cadaver. The cadaver's got the same body parts that I have, certainly pre-dissected. And so what is it that it's not moving, but I'm growing and I'm reproducing and I'm assimilating, I'm eliminating, and I'm adapting, which is the biggest thing. We always want to say the power that made the body heals the body, which I like, but there's so many other things that the body does beyond just heal. And all of those things are governed by this thing called innate intelligence. It's not hocus pocus. It just is what it is. So I feel pretty doggone comfortable. I don't believe of the times that I've worn Band-Aids or just held a piece of toilet paper on my face if I cut it shaving, or I had stitches on the really.
You want to look like a grown-up?
What's that?
Is that just because you want to look like a grown-up?
Yes.
You put the toilet paper on your face.
I still haven't shaved yet. So I just put a dab of some toilet paper. So I'm driving down the highway in the morning and say, look, I'm grown up. Look.
Right.
Instead, none of those things are important. They didn't heal the cut. Innate healed the cut. Innate knew, I'm going to send platelets to this place. I'm going to send some white blood cells to deal with any infections there. And then I'm going to get rid of those things once things are healed. And then in its time, it's going to scab over. And then that scab, there might be a scar there. But at the end of the day, it's going to be fixed. When I broke my collarbone playing baseball years ago, it was innate that fixed it. Because, in fact, with a broken collarbone, all they can really do is put you in that figure 8 brace. And that held my clavicle went from that to that. And so now it was like this, but it was innate. That actually put a capsule of calcium around it. In fact, it's stronger now than my left one. And so if I was going to break one, which I hope I don't go that experience again, the left one's going to go well before this one's going to go. And so I didn't sit there and think, okay, I'm home from school now, fix the bone.
Yeah.
And so Innate did that for me, and I didn't have to worry about it. My job was to put my educatedly where this came in, put myself in the best position to do that healing. But that healing was one thing, but there was growth, there was reproduction going on in there. There was assimilation and elimination going on there, and Innate adapted. Yes, now I have it wasn't able to put it together end to end type of thing. So what Innate did was now it encapsulated the whole thing. So I've got a little calcium helmet around where the break was on my collarbone. So pretty awesome that I really didn't have to think about it, because when it happened, I was a sophomore in high school. And again, I wasn't thinking about creating bone and that type of stuff. But Innate takes care of me. It does, it revs me up for when there's a stress I got to deal with, and then it relaxes me when I've dealt with it, hopefully. How many times do people get an adjustment and just feel that, right? And that's your whole system just relaxing, because Innate's clear. It's not in the fight or flight anymore. It is going to be, if you're fully subluxated, you're going to be ramped up and probably pretty doggone tense all the time. So I love watching chiropractic kids, because especially if they've been checked and adjusted since birth, they tend to be the most chill people I've ever met in my life, like next level chill. You put a mirror under the nose to see that they're breathing type stuff. And so, my son and my daughter, I look at that. My daughter was 7 when she had her first adjustment, which was when I got into chiropractic, and my son right when he was born. And the difference in them, it was remarkable as far as how they each handled their initial childhood years. He's way healthier. And then he just has a calmness about him that, even though my daughter's been adjusted, she's 23 now, so she's been adjusted 16 years. He's just next level there. He's just one of those chilled out chiropractic kids that you just kind of feel good just hanging out with.
But you feel good hanging out with your daughter, right?
What's that? Yeah, no, I mean, it's just different with him. Yeah, I mean, I'm more like my daughter. There's no doubt about it. Our interests, our common interests. I'm probably closer to my daughter than my son.
Yeah.
But it's just neat to be with this he's at a different level of peace than I am, and that's certainly that my daughter even is. And it's pretty good. Hers is pretty good. So don't get me wrong. She's been adjusted since she was 7. But what I love is what he's been able to be given those 7 years that she didn't have of a nervous system experience of subluxation. And the reason is to let Innate do its thing. And so it's just kind of fun watching them operate where Innate's flowing free. So it's just really hard for me to observationally look at a human unsubluxated versus a human subluxated and to say, you know what, there's no such thing as innate intelligence. That's just a whole bunch of gobbledygook, and that's just not true. The difference is remarkable. There is a life force inside us. It is an organizing wisdom. It does adapt to the stresses that are going on, because otherwise it'd rip you and I apart, which if we go way back to Principle 11, that's what universal forces do. Universal forces, traditionally, we differentiate into the 3 T's, thoughts, traumas, and toxins. And so those things are going to rip us apart unless we have something that's able to keep ourselves organized in a way, to where we survive. I think about, here's a good one. There's a good reference. You ever watch Gladiator?
The movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like the first time they go out there to fight, was it Marcus Aurelius is like, he wants them, to bunch up and have their shields to stay organized to handle the threat. But it's when they start going off on their own, that's when they started getting picked off left and right. And so that's what Innate is able to do with all the cells of our body, all those trillions of cells, is keep them organized in a way to best handle whatever a threat is that's coming our way, thought, trauma, or toxin wise.
So let's talk about innate and dis-ease processes.
Okay.
Right. So, like your kid has a fever,
Right.
and I definitely am like, innate's on the job. Well, like innate didn't take a vacation when, I don't know, when my uncle was diagnosed with cancer. It wasn't like innate was at the beach.
Right.
So what happens in those situations, and how do you explain that to a practice member? Like, hey, Dr. Dooley, you've been teaching me about innate intelligence, and that it takes care of myself, me. It does healing, it does assimilation, it does growth, it does reproduction, it does elimination, it coordinates all of that. And I was just diagnosed with whatever. Like, where's innate?
So that's going to be principle 24 is usually where that one comes in, is because that's where there's limitations of matter. And so the issue will be, what kind of choices have you, I, or anybody made going way back? And, way back, a lot of our choices were made for us. But we need to go like way, way, way back. And the issue with, innate can only work as, it can only do what it can do given the matter that it's given. So if I'm, I don't know, if I'm in a NASCAR race, I probably am not going to win it in my Ford Fusion. I might win it in your nice car, but I'm not going to win my Ford Fusion with its 4 cylinders. And so, so even though I know how to drive, it's just the vehicle I have only has so much under the hood. And so that's why, that's why it is important to make some good choices so that we give innate not only the clearest pathways, but we also give it the healthiest, cells, organs, and tissues in order to do its magic. Innate can only do so much with the stuff that it's given. So yeah, it is important to eat right and to exercise. And at the end of the day, we just don't know. I mean, toxin wise, that's a pretty wide range of things. Anything that we eat, drink, or breathe, and who knows how long we've done it, and who knows what we're doing, what kind of damage it's causing inside, even though we think we eat right, we think we exercise, but who knows what this toxin is sometimes. And so, innate's still working the best that it possibly can, but it just comes down sometimes to the limitations of matter. And I think people think sometimes when you go to the chiropractic, you're never, ever going to be symptomatic again. And that's not what we're saying at all. It really has nothing to do with the symptom, because as you mentioned with a fever, fevers are good things. And so they're not comfortable. But I also think that's good because that's innate saying, hey, you need to lay down. This is where I can't worry about you crossing a street while I'm trying to take care of this bug that's eating you apart. So lay down and let me put some work on it. But kind of in Western society, we don't give ourselves the opportunity to rest. And so, we just keep putting innate maybe under extra stress that it needs to be.
Nice. So I think, kind of like, I love the analogy of the Ford Fusion and the limitations of matter. Okay, yes, it's a vehicle. It takes you down the road. It's got a motor. It's got an exhaust system. It has all of these things. But in that condition, in that particular race, that's not going to be the vehicle, right, to get you across the finish line first. So right. In the human body, depending on what you have subjected your body to, or somebody else did that was out of your control, mother, father, like whoever, that now is the vehicle by which you're traveling in. And there are limitations of matter. So right. Let me ask you this. Is there a way to change innate intelligence, like enhance it or decrease it? Or is it always 100%?
It's always 100%, and that's in the next few principles. So it is what it is. And so innate wants you to survive, if we can say it that way. Innate wants you not only to survive, innate wants you to thrive. So while you can't diminish really or enhance innate, you can certainly diminish or enhance its expression through the matter of which it's working. And so that's why, and then the way that it does that, it operates in, through, and over the nervous system. So we need to have that nervous system clear so we can have that best expression possible. So we're not making more innate, but we're maybe getting a better expression. On the other side of that, when we have this subluxation, you're not decreasing innate, but you are certainly decreasing its effect.
So its expression changes based on the accumulation of physical, chemical, and emotional stress. Like I think of it like being a mom, right? Like there are times my expression changes, like, you know, like throw like more and more and more at me, and eventually I can hit my tipping point and right. Or, you know, like the fever or the expression, like when even when innate hits its tipping point, the limitations of matter, something's got to give. Right. But innate is always at 100%.
Yes. I mean, it is always working on. That's the thing I love about Principle 11, where universal forces are unswerving, unadapting, and show no solicitude. At the end of the day, universal wins. Otherwise, you'd have piled up biological bodies all over the place. You know, you and I are going to make the great transition at some point because universal forces are going to win given whatever limitations your and my physical form have. And so, you know, so therefore we have these 85 spins around the sun. And so let's make them as glorious as they possibly can be. And the way that we can do that is make some good choices. You know, number one is going to be chiropractic care, because no matter what choices you make health-wise, you're going to be the best person you can possibly be with a nervous system free of interference of subluxation. So if you want to be a chiropractor, if you want to be a high-performing athlete, if you want to be the best mom or the best dad, or you want to be somebody sitting on the couch watching NASCAR just eating ho-hos, and I'm not saying that's what all NASCAR people do, but if you are sitting on the couch watching TV eating ho-hos all the time, you will still be the best version of that with a nervous system free of interference of subluxation. So even then, innate, given what matter it's given, it's still going to shine through the best it possibly can.
And then, so we said that we can change the expression. So we've talked about how do we lower the expression of innate. Like innate just is, right? It just is. Yep. But it gets blocked because of interference, because of more stress than it can adapt to. Right. Is that an accurate way to say that?
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, because everybody says, well, what causes subluxation? It's the 3 T's, and it's not the 3 T's. It's the body's inability to adapt to those 3 T's. And so, because we come across 3 T's all day long. So our students they're in final exams, so they're emotionally stressed. They're sitting at the desk for however long a day, so they're physically stressed. And Lord knows what they're eating, drinking their Monster drinks and all these things. That doesn't mean they're automatically going to be subluxated. It's when the body can't respond to that stuff anymore. You know, that's when the subluxation shows up. And now you've got a non-dynamic system to where you're sort of stuck either in sympathetic overload or parasympathetic overload. So on one hand, you're almost redlining the car, right? You're at a really high idle, so that when you do have to respond to stress, you can't, because it's already up there.
Yeah.
Then on the other side, you could be so parasympathetic that when you need to respond to a stress, you hit the gas and there's just nothing. And so you don't want either one of those. You want to be right in the middle, where innate's able to say, all right, I got to do a bit more, or I got to do a bit less. And you know, it's 3 bears. You want innate's expression to be just right. And so, yeah, and I think that's the big thing with innate. It's just when what I'm getting at is, if you find yourself in your life that you, Mr., Mrs., patient, practice member, client, if you find yourself under more stress, thought, trauma, or toxin-wise, do you think it's a good idea to get your spine checked more regularly? Of course it is. And so, great. So maybe you're going through this process. I'm going to probably bump up, you know, hopefully, let's say they're on a maintenance care plan. Even on a maintenance care plan, because you're dealing with this extra stuff, maybe we ought to see you 2 or 3 times next week, because you're going through a divorce, because you're going through a job change, because your kids are getting married, because your kids are graduating college, or there's finance issues, and who knows what we're eating, drinking, and breathing these days. Name the stuff. I mean, if you do sit at a computer all day long, or you're in a factory where it's manufacturing work where you're always twisting or turning the same way, depending on whatever the job is, then yeah, do you think it might be important to take care of that spine to let this life force go through so you can do all those tasks as well as possible? And of course,
right. That's what I used to say, is do you want to roll the dice and hope for the best that this time when you go through the crisis, you get the same results as last time, which was like a week out of work, or we could be proactive this week and add on several adjustments over the next couple of weeks as you're getting ready to go into like back to school season for families that have children who are school age, where they're running around getting new clothes and all of the lists for all the schools. And I don't remember, I remember back to school clothes shopping when I was a kid, but I don't remember getting this monster list from a teacher. And perhaps I just got it, but it doesn't seem like now. And it's like very specific, not the 6-inch, but the 6.123-inch, whatever. It's like, are you kidding me? Like,
I don't know where the intelligence is there, but I hear you. I just got my Trapper Keeper, a couple of pencils, and some pens, and called it a day. And a lot of brown garbage bags, or grocery bags, to cover my books.
That was so awesome. And I remember, I think it was in high school, like you had to have your books covered by a certain day in the classes. And if you did, then you got like bonus points. So I was all in for the bonus points of like covering my books and paper. And then eventually they got those like pre-made ones, I think, that you could just like slide them in, if I don't recall. Maybe that was like for my kids. It wasn't back in our day.
They didn't have the Dooley household, I can tell you that. But there's a great point about how many people recovered their books maybe at Christmas break. Right? And the reason why you recovered it was because it got tore up because for the first half of the year, and you wanted more space to doodle on, was really why you probably recovered it. But that's limitations to matter, right? Things wore it out, and then the intelligence says, I got to adapt to this thing and give it something so I can express all my sport team doodles better than they were the first half of the year, or whatever the hell else I was writing on things. But that's sort of the same deal. And my intelligence says, this is what I want to express on this artist medium, if you will. But after a while, it was worn. The paper itself couldn't change, right? Because it's not, as we define alive, as the signs of life. And so, but I was able to adapt to that situation through the intelligence that was going through me. And looking at some of my grades, maybe not the intelligence, but you know what I'm saying.
I was the opposite. I studied a lot in high school. My parents used to take my books away. Like, you have to relax. Yeah, I just played sports and studied. So I don't remember doodling a whole lot. But
I do.
I heard about doodling. And now you just confirmed it's a real thing.
Right. Oh, I was the doodle. I was the doodle before the Dooley.
the Dooley doodler.
That's it.
Hey, so I want to acknowledge the individuals who've joined us. So thank you so much, Dina and Dawn Jones Dooley.
Oh, she's fabulous.
A Dooley. Yeah. And Dr. Stacy and Thea and Joe, Matt. Hey, Matt. Carol, Dr. Neufeld, I already said hi, and Tabor. Thanks everyone for joining us. And if I missed you, I apologize. When you come on, if you don't like make a comment or do something, I don't always get to see you and acknowledge you. So I encourage all of you to put on your whiteboard innate intelligence, which, remember, as Dr. Brian just talked about, universal intelligence is different than innate intelligence. So real quickly before we end this broadcast, what's the difference? Why would it be inaccurate to put up universal intelligence and then talk about adaptation, assimilation, growth, reproduction, and elimination?
Well, a rock doesn't do those things. And a rock has the organizational wisdom, if you will, of universal intelligence in it, but it doesn't do those other things. and by the other things, the 5 signs of life. And so this is where that example of where universal is like the ocean and innate might be a cup of seawater. So that cup is not the ocean, but it's got a lot of the same properties, namely organization. And so that's where, it's a little bit different. When we get to principle 26, we can answer that as well, because innate or universal forces on structural matter tend to be destructive, and innate forces are going to be constructive. So they're going to be different in that way. Innate is trying to resist universal and convert universal in order to make it what it needs. So innate can't do it by itself. So innate needs a universal force of eating a good meal to get all the nutrients out of the food. Innate needs the sunshine so it can take it and make vitamin D. Innate needs good thoughts to sort of chill out the system. Those types of things. And so you can put universal up there. I like talking about universal and say, well, hey, Mary or John, do you think the universe is an organized place? Well, yeah. Well, there's this universal intelligence that's organizing everything. So if you think the universe is organized, then shouldn't you, as part of that universe, be organized as well? Well, yeah, now that you think about it, and what's organizing you is something we call innate intelligence. So it's not the universal stuff. This is the stuff that's born within you and keeping you at the best way possible. And the way it does that is through a nervous system free and clear of subluxations. And the way we do that is I check your spine weekly. So lay down.
Lay down.
So,
Zip it.
Did you know that Dooley on there? That's my wife, by the way. Did you know that?
I didn't know Dawn was your wife.
Dawn is my wife. Yeah, she's not just a Dooley. She's like the Dooley, as far as I'm concerned.
The queen.
She's the queen Dooley.
Dooley.
She is.
Awesome. Well, Dawn, in the conversations I have had with your husband, I would have to say he is el presidente of your fan club in every way. So good job, sister.
He's a good egg.
You sold him. You sold him. Hook, line, and sinker. I said that today. Obviously in the boot camp, we talk a lot about sales. And so I always ask, are you in a relationship or married? And, whatever the answer is. And I'm like, well, you sold that guy on you. Congratulations. You're a saleswoman.
Yeah, there you
go. You had quite the sales job to get Dawn to come on over, huh?
It took a lot of work. Bless her heart.
Your most profound sale ever.
I think she still has the receipt, though, so I have to be careful.
That's right. That is one thing she put in the cloud.
Yes, she still has the receipt.
That's awesome. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Again, I have offered this before. We haven't had any takers, but that doesn't mean today wouldn't be the first. That couldn't be the first. If you'd like to join us for a philosophy powwow, we do have a capacity to add 1 or 2 others. And if you'd like to do so, we'd love to have you. If you are struggling with sharing philosophy in your practice and you want some help, either send me a private message or send Dr. Brian a private message. We promise we won't embarrass you. It'll just be a conversation that we have. And that way you have an answer of how you can make a deeper impact in your practice members' lives. Remember, we're the only ones that are really talking about this and that it's our philosophy. Deepak Chopra and a lot of those talk about innate intelligence, but the difference is we actually get to impact it through chiropractic adjustments. So I encourage all of you that if you don't have the confidence to talk about chiropractic philosophy in your practice, please watch these, join us. If you haven't ever talked to me on the phone about joining the chiropractic boot camp, I encourage you to do so. It is shutting down for the summer. I'm not sure when it'll reopen. That simply means that I won't be adding new members after the end of June for a bit. So if you've been thinking about it, get off the fence, make a decision, move forward. Dr. Brian, thank you so much. It was another fun conversation about chiropractic principles and Principle 20.
Thank you, Dr. Barber, for inviting me. Always a blast.
It's always a blast.
Yep.
And I love to see all of you on Sherman's campus, July the 13th. I think I'm coming into a couple of your classes.
Yes, you are. I got is that what day is the 13th?
So the 13th is Saturday. So the 12th.
Okay. So Friday, yeah. I got to just check. I'll get with you tomorrow about that. So I'm excited to have you in the classes because
We
you
have a month.
knocked it out of the park last time. So we'll give you
It was
another.
fun.
Yeah.
It was really fun to talk about like brand new students and at the end of the journey.
Right.
And you know, our perspective, right? Our perspective is so different at the beginning versus the end. So thank you all. God bless you. Have a wonderful night, and we'll catch you. Let me just confirm when 1 minute if we're on in 2 weeks. I believe we are on in 2 weeks. So we'll see you all back here 2 weeks from today.
Awesome.
All right. Hey, thanks everyone. See ya. Bye.
Bye.